Okay, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I just want to give a little bit of insight into my history when it comes to this franchise before I start the review. And that is, back when I was a kid, I absolutely loved those original two movies, Ghostbusters 1 and 2. You know, where you've got that big giant marshmallow man and all of that. I was just attracted to the creativity and the imagination behind those movies. It's been quite a few years since I've revisited those films, but I remember looking back on them, sort of really liking them, really enjoying them, and just finding them a load of fun. I've never watched Afterlife. I know, shock, and I was hoping to catch it before going to watch Frozen Empire last night. But I've heard a lot of positive things around that movie, so I was definitely sort of intrigued and looking forward to watching Frozen Empire, because the one thing that I wanted this film to do is take me back to my childhood. So the synopsis is, when the discovery of an ancient artifact unleashes an evil force, Ghostbusters, new and old, must join forces to protect their home and save the world from a second ice age. So, Frozen Empire. What I feel like they do really well with this movie is capture the essence of those original two movies from the 80s. Those two films that I grew up with, had just having a lot of fun with. And that's all done through the VFX, the CGI. I feel like, you know, they've got this kind of very retro look to the special effects, which really just took me back to being a kid again. And you've got the brilliant score, to the cinematography, even the humour to a degree. All sort of kind of really captures that same sort of vibe and essence of those original two movies. So for me, personally, this felt like a Ghostbusters movie in tone and aesthetic, and I found myself appreciating it more from a technical perspective, especially in how they just brought these creatures and this world to life. And that one aspect for me that really manages to capture that essence, that tone of those original movies, those original two movies, is the special effects and sort of the use of practical effects within this movie. I absolutely adored how much practical was used. And again, it's sort of just the style and the look of the effects just really sort of took me back to being a kid again, watching those original movies. And for example, you've got Slimer in sort of a couple of moments, they're very brief, but it appears they are using a puppet, and I just loved it. You know, it feels, even though you could kind of tell it's a puppet, it still feels like a living, breathing thing within this world, more so than it would have if it had just been this CGI creation. So yeah, from a technical perspective, I really appreciated a lot of those elements, a lot of those aspects in how they brought these creatures and this world to life. But the major issues I had with this movie was the writing and its story and how the story played out. This was a 2-hour movie and it felt a hell of a lot longer. And that's because there is so much noise, unnecessary noise within this movie when it comes to characters and subplots. Like, there are way too many characters within this movie. And the frustrating thing was, if they stripped everything back and taken out a load of characters that I felt like they didn't need, and just streamlined this story in the way in which it's told, from sort of, you know, just how the narrative was structured even, I just feel like we could have had an experience that was actually a hell of a lot of fun and would have kept me immersed for the entire duration. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that for me. There is an opening scene that I found a load of fun, and not only that, there are a couple of moments within this movie that I thought were fun. But overall, as one whole experience, I can't believe that I'm going to say this about a Ghostbusters movie, but for the middle part especially, that second act, I found it to be a slog to sit through. And I just couldn't get over how hard this film was to watch in a lot, you know, in moments. There was a lot of unnecessary character moments, and I think a lot of that was due to the fact that we've got so much going on when it comes to characters and subplots. And ultimately, it really sort of distracts or takes away from what is the real beating heart of this story, which revolves around one of our lead actresses, Phoebe Spengler, you know, and her story and her sort of coming to age story and all of that. That gets lost because of all this noise around the character and this family dynamic even. I mean, you've got this family dynamic that I haven't been introduced to yet because I've never watched Afterlife. But the way in which they tell this story, it's almost like they treated me as a viewer like I should have watched Afterlife first. And like I previously said, there are, a couple of moments, there are the few odd moments within this film that I thought were quite fun. Especially that opening scene. I was locked in for a moment. But the film quickly loses me as the story progresses. And we get introduced to all these other characters and subplots. And but yeah, when you get these odd moments of fun, they all just ended up feeling like they were just tacked on between all these other character moments due to how inconsistently the story holds together and the narrative plays out. It's like you've got our main characters and sort of where the real focus is and should be, and sort of the beating heart of the story, but they're sort of just pushed to one side to cram all these other characters in that we're already familiar with. And yeah, don't get me wrong, it's great seeing Bill Murray on the screen again, but at the same time, due to how they're implemented or utilised within the story, it just felt very unnecessary. So yeah, unfortunately, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire ultimately feels like this big empty mess of a film that sort of really wants to tap into your nostalgia and just take you back to the 80s with those original two movies, but then kind of in moments remembers, oh shit, I've got a story here to tell as well. And that's how it kind of really felt. And don't get me wrong, they do a really good job at transporting you back to those original movies. I felt like I was watching a Ghostbusters film, like I said. But a lot of that was down to sort of just how the world is brought to life from a technical perspective. But just when it comes to the writing and how these characters were brought to life and how many characters were just crammed into this story. And just how the story was told. This is a very simple story. And it feels like they're just stretching it awfully thin because they sort of filling it full of this other nonsense, which, a lot of these moments with characters that we just don't really need. And so yeah, it all just ended up feeling very messy and unnecessary, with the odd few moments here and there that I thought were, yeah, quite fun. And it was, it was great to see Slimer again, and sort of, yeah, but it ended up becoming quite a frustrating experience as well, because I could just see that if this film had been streamlined a hell of a lot more when it comes to its writing, its characters, and just how the story was told, this could have been a really effective, fun comedy that not only took you back to being a kid again, but was fulfilling. Unfortunately, it doesn't achieve that. They just needed to really keep that focus on this family dynamic and what was the beating heart of this story. Yes, it's great to have member berries now and then if utilised right, but the problem here is those member berries, they are what partly derails this film. And there wasn't really a moment within this film that stood out. It was all kind of very just one note and flat. Even the third act, it's very anticlimactic. And, you've got this scene where you've got all the old cast and all the new cast sort of coming together to join forces to defeat this entity. And it just felt very kind of awkward and clunky and dull, the way in which it all played out. I imagined in my head, before the third act even came, I was struggling so much with sort of watching this film that I was just thinking of what it is they could pull off in the third act. And I just imagined them sort of doing this thing where you'd have all the new cast, all the old cast, walking very slowly towards the camera, very corny, very cheesy, with the classic Ghostbusters song playing in the background. And, they're about to take on this entity, and it's like nothing. It somewhat happens, but it's just done in a way that's very awkward, very dull, very flat, and it kind of just falls on its arse. So yeah, there's stuff that I did like within this film. I liked the creature and the ghost designs, the aesthetic, the cinematography, the VFX mixed with the practical, but unfortunately it all just didn't come together to create one immersive, fun experience. And unfortunately it was just a bit of a mess, and I just couldn't believe, in one moment during the second act, I almost turned to the person that I was watching this movie with and whispered, oh my god, I can't believe how slow this film is. And so that's when I realised, it was during the second act I really realised that this film was just not working for me. But like I said, there is aspects of this film that I liked. and I think there are going to be people out there that like this film a hell of a lot more than me. Yeah, as one whole experience, it just didn't quite do it, though I do really appreciate sort of a lot of the other aspects when it comes to sort of bringing certain like creatures to life. That technical aspect I really did appreciate. So there are things to like about this film, for me personally anyway. So yeah, enough rambling on from me. They are my thoughts on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and I will be giving Ghostbusters Frozen Empire a 4 out of 10. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Frozen Empire, but what did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek who ramble on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. I've got 2 videos on the way. My next video is going to be a movie talk video, one that I haven't done for a long time, and that is me just sort of sharing my thoughts with you guys on the most recent Alien Romulus trailer, the teaser trailer that was released this week. I absolutely loved it, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with you all my theories and my thoughts on everything Alien Romulus so far. And I've also got a movie review coming for Immaculate, which was just released this weekend, and I haven't checked it out yet, I haven't watched it yet, but that will be my next movie review. So yeah, thanks again for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.